Hey guys, Ashton Bingham here from Muse Themes. Today we're doing a walkthrough of our Belleza theme. This is another one of our one-page sites, or scrolling sites, if you will, but has some really nice parallax scrolling effects built in that give it a really stylish flair. The site is designed with a graphic designer, web designer type of tone to it, but as always is completely customizable, and especially in this case, could really be adapted tonally to fit just about anything with some simple style changes. On the demo page here, we open the site with some really cool typography. Now this could be a quote as it is now, or it could be a mission statement, or just some funny limerick, but I think it's a pretty neat way to intro the site. And now you can either start scrolling yourself, which gives you this really cool effect where the words are disappearing in sequence at the rate of your scroll, which is pretty neat. Or you can simply click the arrow, which is hyperlinked to an anchor on the page, bringing us down to our first section titled What We Do. And now you may have noticed the menu bar. It came up from the bottom with the rest of the site content, but remains sticky on the top of the page for the rest of your scrolling, which is pretty neat. We get some more scroll effects here with this hero photo, which is always cool in my opinion, kind of gives a little bit of a 3D feel. And down here under What We Do, we have a nice composition widget implemented where you can add various clickable sections for more detail. Next up is our work section that you can scroll to or simply click the work button on the menu. And we get a nice uniform gallery of images here, all of which are selectable and pull up this neat lightbox setup with more information. And you can even cycle through them right here in the lightbox, which is pretty neat. Or just simply close out of it by clicking here. Clicking to our About page, more scroll effects again, with this blurred photo background, really making the content pop off the page. And we have here a setup ready to go where you can add team members and bios and such, or however you feel like setting that up. And then finally clicking to our contact page. We get an interactive embedded map here, and then this really cool slide-in effect with the contact details and social media links. So this site is a really neat setup, and it's got a lot of different effects and builds already ready to go that you can maneuver to adapt to really just about anything you need. So as always, let's jump right into Muse and we'll take a look at how this all was accomplished. As you may have guessed, we're only dealing with one page here on our plan view, and our master page doesn't actually contain anything since there's no pages to be duplicated. So let's click directly to our home page where all the action is. Starting here right on the top, first and foremost, we have our home anchor sitting right up here, which is allowing us to link either back to the home page or maybe a top of page button, just in case you want to add any applicable hyperlinks anywhere on the site. And then we have a full width rectangle here with this pink color fill. And sitting right here on top, we have this collection of grouped text boxes. Now you may be wondering, why so many separate text boxes? Well, it was set up this way to give them that varying fade out effect that we saw in the demo once we start scrolling. Now if I click a text box here just once, I only select the group as a whole. But if I want to adjust the scroll effects, I need to select an individual text box. Let's take this line here that says, to save money. Now if I click a few times, I get the individual box selected that you can see here. And this is where our scroll effects come into play. You can also see that we now have this stem sticking out from the top of the box. And this is marking our opacity scroll effect that's been applied. So let's jump into our scroll effects panel. And we'll click over to the second tab for opacity effects. And if you haven't worked with opacity effects before, there are basically three positions that are set, which you can see are all labeled by these icons here, and also reflected on the stem for your reference. So we can see from fade position 1 to the key position, the opacity doesn't change, it stays at 100%. But once we hit the key position, which sits at 40 pixels down from the top of the page, we start fading from 100% to 0%, all the way down to fade position 2. And you can always check the stem. We can see the key position sitting here at 40 pixels down from the top, and it will take us this small distance right here to fade from fully visible to invisible. And you'll find that all these text boxes have varying pixels for where the key position rests, which is giving us that cool varied disappearing effect when scrolling down the page in the browser. And then lastly in this section we have an arrow graphic here, which is linked to our What We Do anchor, as noted here in the hyperlinks menu. So now we need to scroll down the page a little ways, and we get to our next batch of content. Now first let's talk about this menu. Now there's more scroll effects applied here, to this white bar, the Belleza logo, as well as the menu. But let's say I select the menu here and I visit our scroll effects panel. You'll see that it's not an opacity effect this time, but instead a motion effect. Now this has a similar setup though. You have your initial motion setting, and then the key position in the middle, and then the final motion down here. Now if we go to look at our stem, it kind of appears that there really isn't much of one, but that's because the key position is sitting right on top of the menu itself. So the final motion will apply to the menu as soon as the menu itself touches the top of the browser. So looking back at our live demo, we can see that the header bar scrolls at the normal speed when it's beneath the top of the browser. But as soon as it touches the top of the browser, it stops moving. And back in our scroll effects panel, you can see exactly that. We have an initial motion of 1, which is 100% normal scrolling speed, and a final motion of 0, meaning it won't move after hitting that key position. So moving down a little to our hero image, again, even more scroll effects applied. However, these you're going to find in a different spot. Right here, we're working with an image-filled rectangle. So what we're going to do is go to our Fill menu, where you can see the image is loaded here. And of course, you're able to swap that out for anything you'd like. But if I click over to the Scroll tab, we see an initial and final motion of 0.3, which basically means it's scrolling at 30% of the normal page scrolling speed at all times, which is what's giving us that cool 3D feeling. So now let's jump down to what we do. Here we're using a regular Muse composition widget. It's just styled up with some really neat circular triggers and various things. So here in Muse, all you have to do is select any of the individual triggers to open the corresponding targets. And then once you do that, you can simply click all the way into the target to make your changes. And as with all compositions, you simply have to click the plus sign by the triggers in order to add more sections. Jumping down to recent projects, this one sometimes surprises people as it kind of behaves like a composition as well. However, this is indeed a slideshow. All of these thumbnails you see here are images that have been loaded into the slideshow, and you can make all your changes by simply selecting the slideshow and then clicking the blue icon to open the settings panel. Now inside here you have all the settings, of course, for the slideshow, and you can add more images here on the top. And then if we simply select down here on the bottom, Show Lightbox Parts While Editing, we can expose the lightbox content. Now with the lightbox open, you can still select any thumbnail behind it to see its corresponding lightbox content. And these images have been cropped in such a way that it allows for some extra space on the side here for some more in-depth captions, which of course you can simply click all the way into to make changes. Then when you're done, just make sure to jump back into the panel and give that lightbox a close just to keep it out of the way. Now further on our way down, nothing too complicated here, just some nice empty content areas for you to add your team member names and whatnot. And same effect here with the image as before, only this time one with a blur has been added in order to keep that visual focus on the content sitting over top of it. And lastly, this brings us down to our contact section. Now here we have a full-width embedded HTML from Google Maps. And all you have to do to make changes to this is grab any embed code from Google Maps to replace this with. And you can do that by right-clicking on the object and selecting Edit HTML. And then you can simply paste your embed code within. Now for this sliding contact box. Again, using more motion scroll effects here, but in a slightly different way. If I hover over it, you can see again we're dealing with a group of items. But when I select the group, the stem appears, meaning that the scroll effects are applied to the group as a whole, as opposed to the text on the very top of the page where different scroll effects were applied to each text box. So with the group selected, if we open the Scroll Effects tab, we can see that we have a stem sitting with a key position of 5,283, and we have an initial motion of 1. However, we can see that it's applied to both the upward motion and the right motion, meaning as fast as it's traveling up with the scroll, it's also moving to the right. That is until we reach the key position, and then it stops moving to the right, and the vertical scrolling continues as normal, which we can see in the live demo. Coming into the contact section, we have the group moving to the right just as fast as it's moving up, until it lands in place and hits that keyframe. And back in Muse, you can simply click a few times into this group and you can still make any text or graphic changes to any of the individual items. So that's Belleza. Thanks again as always for watching, and if you run into any hiccups, please send us a note over in support. Have a great day.